Welcome back, everyone. The iPhone 13 Pro Max just came out about like 2 months ago, so let's go and compare that camera against the iPhone 8 Plus camera and see which specific camera is better. I'm going to tell you the 13 Pro Max is the better camera in every single way, but it's still interesting to see some of the similarities between them. Now, both of these phones can do 4K at 60 on the back. The iPhone 8 Plus has a dual camera setup, a wide and a telephoto lens, where the iPhone 13 Pro Max has a wide telephoto and ultra-wide sensor. So a little bit of a different setup here. You are getting an additional camera on the 13 Pro Max, but you're still getting 4K at 60 on the back of both of these. But the iPhone 8 Plus can only do 1080p at 30 on the front. The 13 Pro Max can do 4K at 60 on the front. So keep that in mind. That's a pretty big difference. But essentially the way this camera comparison worked was I tapped to focus on both of these photos. So the 13 Pro Max photos were taken on the right side. The iPhone 8 Plus photos are taken on the left. So you can pretty much see that immediately there's a pretty big difference. The iPhone 13 Pro Max, pretty much is a little bit more, I don't know the best way to describe, but the color looks a lot more popping, the background looks a lot more blurred, and it looks like a way better photo than the iPhone 8 Plus photo, which is on the left. So the color looks a little bit more, I don't know, overexposed is the word, but it just looks like kind of like a basic photo you would expect. You can kind of see that even if you look at like this specific portion up here, you look at this portion here, I mean the color looks so much better on the 13 Pro Max that it's not even funny. Like I mentioned, the background is also much more blurred out on the iPhone 13 Pro Max as well, making that the bulb in the middle looks so much more in focus, which looks really, really nice. And you can see the textures of the green color as well. I mean, these are like completely different green colors, which is so crazy. So the first photo definitely goes for the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I mean, that's a crazy feature for sure. Now this photo, from bird's eye view right now, they both look kind of the same. The iPhone 8 Plus on the right side right here looks a little bit more, I guess, I don't know if it's a different color. It's kind of like more gray. With the 13 Pro Max, definitely more grayed out, like much more darker. But go ahead and zoom into this portion, zoom into this portion here. Kind of the same thing going on too. It looks like the iPhone 8 Plus, I think, did a little bit of a better job at evening out some of these colors. But the 13 Pro Max looks really, really good. And you can also see again that the background is much more blurred out on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and that's something that I've been looking at time and time again. I don't really think that's a bad thing for the iPhone 8 Plus. I think the 8 Plus looks pretty good too, but definitely when I'm looking at both of these, the iPhone 13 Pro Max looks much more better. When I'm focusing in on a subject, you're definitely going to be getting a better experience on the iPhone 8 Plus, on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, than on the iPhone 8 Plus. Now this next photo, again, nothing crazy, but you can tell that in lower lighting conditions, the iPhone 8 Plus doesn't really do that great of a job. You can see the Pro Max actually, with these photos, they look a little bit better. The colors look a lot more, I guess, I don't know if more in focus is the word, but it just looks a lot smoother and looks just a lot more better in so many different ways. I think the 8 Plus photo looks okay, but you can even tell like right up here, the overexposure is crazy. The iPhone 13 Pro Max did a much better job at not overexposing too much. So I'd definitely say the 13 Pro Max here again looks so much better. You can even see the range. I mean, you're getting like kind of a dark photo here, where up here it's a lot just super overexposed. With the 13 Pro Max, much more even colors throughout, which is super nice. Now this next photo I took in a horrible lighting condition. I just went into like some of the worst lighting condition I went into, and I just took the photo. And I pretty much just, you could tell there's some differences already. Zooming in the middle, you can see a lot more grain, a lot more, I guess, not in focus here. Look at the top left, again, they both kind of look the same there, but one thing I've been looking at is the bottom right corner for this photo. You can see that, in my opinion, again, the iPhone 8 Plus just seems a lot more grainy, which is expected. It's a 2017 phone, but you can see the 13 Pro Max, I think, did a much better job at balancing out a lot more of these colors, and you can kind of tell that with this kind of ridge against this like plant, whatever. You can see that it also looks pretty good there too. So with this photo, I'll definitely say the Pro Max wins. This next photo, again, I've been having some issues on both. The lighting condition, I don't know what it is between both, but I think the 8 Plus looks kind of better when I kind of look at it like this. Zooming in, I don't know if there's going to be that crazy big of a difference. I guess you can kind of tell more detail in some of these like bricks and stuff, which is nice. But one thing I've been kind of focusing on is this little aspect area right here. But both of them don't really look too in focus. But you can tell even from this photo, they both look pretty bad. But to be honest, the 13 Pro Max has much less noise going on in the photo than the 8 Plus. And that's something I've been talking about time and time again. when you have something like an iPhone 8 Plus, that camera, obviously it's a little bit outdated, but you can tell like right here, look at how much grain and noise there is right there. The 13 Pro Max pretty much evened out a majority of that. So you don't want to go get a photo that's going to be super like just grained out and just going to be like all over the place. You don't want that. So the 13 Pro Max definitely wins here again. I mean, it's quite obvious there's a lot less noise going on with some of these later, newer sensors than some of the older ones. This photo is nothing crazy. I just kind of took the photo as it was. Again, nothing crazy. I don't even know what I was trying to do there. Now, this photo is annoying because the 13 Pro Max actually, has a really nice bokeh effect going with it, but it actually ended up doing the macro mode, and at this time, there was no way to manually remove it, so I just had to take this photo, which is really unfortunate because this would have been a really nice photo between both. So with something like the iPhone 8 Plus, it actually did a much better job than I expected. You can see that obviously there's a lot of grain, there's a lot of stuff we probably wouldn't want in a photo, but it actually still looks pretty good, and I don't think it looks bad. It looks better than the 13 Pro Max photo here. But again, we're not really comparing side-by-side photos for this one. They kind of had an issue here, so we're just kind of let this one slide. But I still think the iPhone 13 Pro Max would have won if it was a proper-looking photo. Now, this next photo was portrait mode for both. I didn't think the 8 Plus supported portrait mode for animals, but I guess it kind of did to some extent. Now, both look pretty good when I zoomed out like this. The 13 Pro Max kind of doesn't look as good as the 8 Plus, which is kind of funny, at least from this point. But when you start zooming in, that's when you start seeing some bigger differences. First of all, you can tell that the background is much more blurred out on the iPhone 13 Pro Max than on the iPhone 8 Plus. But I also want to direct your attention to this specific leaf here. You can see that the iPhone 8 Plus didn't blur this photo out as much as the 13 Pro Max. So again, you're going to be getting a much better photo on the Pro Max, whether you are zooming in or zooming out or whatever. You can see that pretty much all across the board. It looks fairly good as well. I don't have really too many complaints here, even at like this specific corner. Again, it looks much more blurred out on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which is always good, even with this flower. I mean, look at this. I mean, you're just definitely getting a much better looking photo, and the photos look so much higher in quality on the 13 Pro Max as well, but they both look pretty good, which is actually pretty interesting. Now, this next photo, I wanted to demonstrate the capability behind both of these lenses. So the 13 Pro Max, these are both lenses on their wide angle lens, so kind of looks the same, to be honest. Now, this next photo is them zooming in all the way. So it looks like they pretty much zoomed in to the max, like they both kind of had the same thing going on, so there's not that big of a difference here. Now, this next photo was them zoomed out completely all the way, and again, you can tell that the 8 Plus pretty much doesn't zoom out as much as the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and this is quite obvious because it doesn't have that ultra wide sensor. So this is a great demonstration. If you're somebody who's going to be wanting to like zoom in a lot into your photos and stuff, you're going to be getting a much better experience on the iPhone 13 Pro Max than on the iPhone 8 Plus. So that's a big thing to keep in mind. Now, lastly, I had this quick photo of whatever this was, like the deck and the chair, and there was nothing crazy here. If I zoomed into the background, one thing I've been kind of showcasing for some of these older iPhones is, you can see that there's a little bit more noise going on with the iPhone 8 Plus photo or the older iPhone photos compared to the new ones. So that's a big thing, but it's really not because nobody's really going to be zooming in that much. However, one thing I want to show you is some of these textures on this chair. I've been seeing that there's a little tiny bit of a difference. I don't really think it's like a crazy big thing, but if you zoom into like this one here that seems kind of in focus on both, you can see that some of these older iPhones have been kind of keeping a lot of that graininess and kind of makes the photo look a little bit worse and makes the chair look a little worse. You can see the 13 Pro Max did a better job at evening out some of these colors and making it look a little bit more whiter than it probably should have been. Even up here, it's a lot more greasy. The 13 Pro Max looks a lot more nicer. So between both, and they both look pretty good. I don't really have too many complaints in this photo, but the 13 Pro Max definitely wins. And ultimately, that's kind of how I feel. The 13 Pro Max is definitely the better phone camera in this specific comparison. And in pretty much most comparisons, I've been finding that the Pro Max camera is very, very good. There are a few things all across the board to hate on it. I think there may be some things here and there that like, hey, I wish it was a little bit better here and there. But like I mentioned, you can't really complain about it too much because it's a very solid sensor. You're getting more video resolutions you can film in. You're getting cinematic mode. You're getting just things time after time after time on the 13 Pro Max that even compared to the 12 Pro Max, it's honestly a better experience for sure. So without a doubt, I think it's definitely a solid phone, and I would definitely recommend you guys to pick it up because it's a very good phone for sure. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.